The massive alien ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system like dark clouds blocking out the stars. Admiral Kane Morrison stood in the command center deep beneath Colorado's mountains, watching the sensor readings that would change humanity's fate forever. The screens showed 200 alien vessels, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. Captain Lisa Rodriguez turned from her station with worry written across her face. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead ship. The AID." Holographic display flickered to life, showing a tall alien creature with 4 arms and skin that looked like gray leather. Its voice came through the translators as cold and commanding. "Species designation human. Your expansion beyond this star system is hereby forbidden. Submit to Zelkan authority or face complete annihilation. You have 7 of your solar rotations to comply." General Paul Henderson clenched his fists as he listened to the alien's words. The creature spoke as if humans were nothing more than insects to be stepped on. Morrison had seen this kind of arrogance before in Earth's own history, when powerful nations thought they could simply take whatever they wanted from weaker ones. "They think we're primitive," Rodriguez said quietly. "Their sensors probably picked up our old radio signals and nuclear tests from decades ago." Dr. Helen Barnes, the lead scientist studying alien communications, nodded in agreement. "The Zelkans have conquered 17 different worlds using the same basic strategy. They show up with overwhelming force, demand surrender, and most species give up without a fight." Morrison walked to the large display showing the positions of both fleets. The aliens had arranged their ships in a standard attack formation, just like the textbooks said they would. They had studied every report from the worlds the Zelkans had conquered, learning their tactics and weaknesses. "Sir," Henderson said, "our deep space monitoring stations detected their fleet 3 months ago. We've had time to prepare." The truth was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for over 50 years. Ever since they first detected alien radio signals from distant stars, Earth's leaders knew that contact would eventually come. They also knew it might not be peaceful. While the aliens thought humans were still using primitive rockets and nuclear weapons, the reality was very different. Captain Jake Sullivan entered the command center carrying a sealed briefcase. "Admiral, the special packages are ready for deployment." Morrison smiled grimly. The packages Sullivan mentioned weren't weapons in the traditional sense. They were something far more dangerous to an arrogant enemy. "Good. Begin Phase 1 immediately." Across the solar system, installations that looked like simple mining operations and research stations began powering up systems that had been hidden for decades. The aliens' sensors showed them exactly what humans wanted them to see: primitive fusion reactors, basic defensive satellites, and ships that appeared to be barely capable of interplanetary travel. What the Zelkan sensors didn't detect were the quantum stealth ships hiding in the shadows of asteroids and moons. They couldn't see the massive railgun batteries disguised as mining equipment, or the missile pods hidden inside what appeared to be civilian space habitats. Commander Beth Williams suited up in her dress uniform, preparing for what would be the most dangerous mission of her career. She would lead the team that would pretend to be Earth's government officials surrendering to the alien fleet. In reality, she and her people were some of the most highly trained intelligence operatives humanity had ever produced. "Remember," Morrison told Williams before she left, "they expect us to be afraid and primitive. Let them think exactly that." The Zelkan High Commander Thex Forthak studied the human response from his flagship. His species had been conquering worlds for over 2,000 years, and humans seemed no different from any other weak civilization they had encountered. Their surrender message had arrived exactly on schedule, just like all the others. "Prepare the tribute collection protocols," Forthak ordered his crew. "This world has useful resources and a large population for labor. The Emperor will be pleased with this easy conquest." His tactical officer reported that human ships across the system were powering down their engines and weapons, just as expected. "Commander, their largest vessels are moving into surrender positions. They're making no attempt to hide or resist." What Vorthak didn't know was that every human ship powering down was being replaced by 3 stealth vessels moving into attack positions. The mining operations that appeared to be shutting down were actually coming online with enough firepower to level entire cities. Colonel Ryan Mitchell coordinated the movement of humanity's hidden fleet from a command post built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. His ships used experimental cloaking technology that made them invisible to the aliens' sensors. Each vessel had been specifically designed to counter Zelkan military technology. "All units report ready," Mitchell said into his communications headset. The trap is set. The aliens had made their first critical mistake by assuming human technology had not advanced beyond what their sensors detected. Their second mistake was following the same conquest pattern they had used on 17 other worlds. Humans had studied every one of those conquests, learning exactly how the Zelkans operated. Dr. Barnes analyzed the alien communications and found something interesting. "Admiral, they're using the exact same approach they used on the Corvin homeworld 8 years ago. Same formation, same timing, same demands." Morrison nodded. Predictability was a weakness that humans had learned to exploit throughout their violent history. They've been successful for so long that they can't imagine anyone finding a way to counter their tactics. As the alien deadline approached, President Maria Santos prepared to deliver humanity's fake surrender speech. She would tell the Zelkans exactly what they wanted to hear while the real military prepared for the fight of their lives. The Zelkan Empire had ignored every warning sign that humans might be more dangerous than they appeared. They had dismissed the possibility that any species could match their technology or outsmart their proven tactics. They were about to learn that underestimating humanity was a fatal mistake. The trap was set, the actors were in position, and the most arrogant empire in the galaxy was sailing straight into humanity's carefully prepared killing field. The Zelkans thought they were conquering another primitive world. Instead, they were about to face an enemy that had turned warfare into an art form. President Maria Santos stood in the Oval Office looking directly into the camera that would broadcast humanity's surrender to the alien fleet. Behind her calm expression was the knowledge that she was about to deliver the performance of her life. Every word had been carefully chosen to make the Zelkans believe they had won another easy victory. "Great Zelkan Empire," she began, her voice carrying just the right amount of defeat and fear. "Humanity recognizes your superior might and advanced technology. We cannot hope to match your powerful fleet or resist your rightful authority over this region of space. We accept your terms completely and request safe passage for our leadership to your flagship for formal surrender ceremonies." Admiral Morrison watched the transmission from his hidden command center, knowing that every second Santos bought them was precious time for the trap to develop. The aliens needed to feel completely confident in their victory, convinced that humans posed no threat whatsoever. High Commander Vorthak received the human surrender message aboard his massive dreadnought Dominion's Edge. The ship was over 3 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy entire cities. To him, the human message was exactly what he expected from another primitive species. As predicted, Vorthak told his bridge crew with satisfaction, "Another world kneels before Zelkan superiority. Begin standard occupation procedures. I want tribute assessment teams ready to deploy as soon as their leaders arrive." The alien commander had no way of knowing that his every word was being recorded and analyzed by human intelligence services. Hidden sensors placed by deep space reconnaissance missions had been studying Zelkan ships for months, learning their weaknesses and capabilities. Captain Jake Sullivan piloted the diplomatic shuttle Peacekeeper toward the alien flagship, accompanied by what appeared to be Earth's most important government officials and military leaders. In reality, the passengers were Commander Beth Williams and her team of intelligence operatives, each one trained in alien psychology and advanced technology. Williams looked out the shuttle's window at the massive Zelkan vessel growing larger ahead of them. "Remember, everyone, we're terrified and defeated. These aliens expect us to be impressed by their technology and grateful for their mercy." The team carried what appeared to be ceremonial gifts and documents of surrender. Hidden inside these innocent-looking items were some of the most advanced scanning and hacking devices humanity had ever created. The aliens would never suspect that their prisoners were actually gathering intelligence for a counterattack. The Dominion's Edge docking bay was enormous, easily large enough to hold a dozen human shuttles. Zelkan soldiers in powered armor escorted the human delegation through corridors filled with alien technology. Williams memorized every detail while pretending to be overwhelmed by the ship's impressive size. "Your vessel is truly magnificent," Williams told the Zelkan escort officer, playing her role perfectly. "Humanity has never seen such advanced engineering." The alien officer's translator conveyed his arrogant response. "Your species will learn much about proper technology under Zelkan guidance. Those who serve the Empire faithfully are rewarded with knowledge." What the officer didn't realize was that Williams was already learning about their technology. The scanning devices hidden in her ceremonial robes were mapping the ship's internal systems and identifying vulnerabilities that human weapons could exploit. Meanwhile, Colonel Ryan Mitchell coordinated the silent movement of humanity's real military assets. Stealth ships emerged from hiding places throughout the solar system, their experimental cloaking technology keeping them invisible to alien sensors. Each vessel moved into carefully planned attack positions. "Ghost leader to all units," Mitchell whispered into his communications headset. "Maintain radio silence and proceed to designated coordinates. The aliens still believe we're surrendering." The stealth fleet included ships that had been secretly built in hidden facilities throughout the outer planets. While the Zelkans thought humans were limited to primitive fusion drives, the reality was that Earth's military had developed quantum engines capable of incredible speed and maneuverability. Back on the alien flagship, Williams and her team were taken to what the Zelkans called the submission chamber. It was designed to humiliate conquered species by forcing their leaders to kneel before Zelkan superiority. The aliens had used this same room to break the spirit of 17 different civilizations. High Commander Vorthak entered the chamber, wearing his full ceremonial armor, a display meant to overwhelm primitive species with his authority and power. "Human leaders, you will now acknowledge Zelkan dominance over your world and all its resources." Williams knelt as expected, but her hidden scanners were busy analyzing the alien commander's armor and the ship's control systems. Every piece of technology she observed was being transmitted to human analysts who were designing countermeasures. "We submit to your wisdom and power," Williams said, maintaining her act while her team planted nanoscale viruses throughout the ship's computer network. These microscopic programs would remain dormant until activated, then begin disrupting alien systems from within. The nanoscale viruses were humanity's secret weapon, designed specifically to counter Zelkan quantum-based computer systems. Earth's programmers had spent years developing malicious code that could adapt and learn, becoming more effective the longer it remained undetected. Dr. Helen Barnes monitored the intelligence gathering from her laboratory beneath the Pacific Ocean. "Admiral, we're receiving detailed scans of their ship designs and weapon systems. Commander Williams and her team are performing perfectly." Morrison nodded grimly. "How long before we have enough information to proceed?" "The nanoscale viruses need at least 48 hours to fully map their network vulnerabilities," Barnes replied. "Once they're in position, we can disrupt their entire fleet simultaneously." The Zelkans celebrated their easy victory while human operatives continued gathering the intelligence that would destroy them. Alien officers toasted their success with ceremonial drinks, completely unaware that their prisoners were actually predators studying their prey. Throughout the solar system, hidden human installations continued their preparations. Mining stations revealed massive railgun batteries, research facilities deployed long-range missile systems, and civilian habitats activated defensive shields that had been disguised as radiation protection. The Zelkan Empire had conquered 17 worlds using the same basic strategy, and it had worked perfectly every time. They had no reason to suspect that the 18th world had studied their methods and prepared specific countermeasures for every tactic they might use. Williams completed the surrender ceremony, while her nanoscale viruses spread throughout the alien fleet's computer networks. The Zelkans thought they had gained another easy conquest, but they had actually walked into the most sophisticated trap in human history. The hunters were about to become the hunted, and they had no idea what was coming. 3 days after the surrender ceremony, strange things began happening throughout the Zelkan fleet. It started small, with minor communication glitches that lasted only a few seconds. Sensor readings flickered occasionally, showing false targets that disappeared when operators tried to focus on them. Power distribution systems experienced brief fluctuations that the alien technicians dismissed as normal wear from their long journey to Earth. High Commander Vorthak noticed the problems, but wasn't particularly concerned. His fleet had traveled thousands of light years to reach the human homeworld, and minor technical issues were expected after such a long voyage. The Zelkan Empire's technology was the most advanced in the galaxy, and their ships were built to handle far worse conditions. Engineering reports all systems within normal parameters, his tactical officer informed him. The anomalies appear to be random fluctuations with no identifiable pattern. What Vorthak didn't know was that Commander Beth Williams and her intelligence team had planted nanoscale viruses throughout his ship's computer networks during the surrender ceremony. These microscopic programs were designed to learn and adapt, becoming more effective the longer they remained undetected. Dr. Helen Barnes monitored the virus activity from her hidden laboratory beneath Earth's ocean. Admiral, Phase 2 is proceeding. Exactly as planned. The nanoscale programs have successfully infiltrated 93% of the alien fleet's computer systems. Admiral Morrison studied the tactical display showing both human and alien fleet positions. How long before they realize what's happening? The viruses are designed to mimic normal system degradation, Barnes explained. The aliens should dismiss the symptoms as routine maintenance issues for at least another 48 hours. The nanoscale viruses weren't just causing random malfunctions. They were systematically learning how Zelkan technology operated, mapping network pathways, and identifying critical system vulnerabilities. Every time the alien technicians tried to fix a problem, they inadvertently taught the viruses how to cause more damage. Captain Danny Brooks commanded the stealth destroyer Invisible Hand, positioned just outside the Zelkan fleet's sensor range. His ship was one of 50 similar vessels that had been secretly built in hidden facilities throughout the outer solar system. Each one carried weapons specifically designed to penetrate alien defenses. "Control, this is Brooks reporting," he whispered into his communications headset. "Enemy fleet is showing increasing coordination problems. Their formation discipline is starting to break down. The viruses were beginning to affect the aliens' ability to communicate with each other effectively. Ships that should have been maintaining precise positions started drifting slightly out of formation. Tactical data that should have been shared instantly between vessels was being delayed by several seconds. Colonel Sarah Kim led the defense team aboard Space Station Liberty, a facility that the aliens believed contained humanity's most critical military command systems. In reality, the station was an elaborate trap designed to capture any Zelkan boarding parties that tried to secure what they thought were important human assets. "All teams, prepare for incoming visitors," Kim announced to her people. "Intelligence suggests the aliens are getting frustrated with their technical problems and may try to accelerate their occupation timeline." The space station had been carefully prepared with hidden weapons, false computer terminals, and corridors that could be sealed to trap intruders. Every room was monitored by hidden cameras that would record alien tactics and technology for future. Lieutenant Colonel Gary Stone had spent months preparing the station's defenses. A former Special Forces operative with 20 years of experience in unconventional warfare, Stone understood how to turn any environment into a deadly maze for unwary enemies. "The aliens will expect us to defend our most important facilities," Stone explained to his team. "They don't realize we want them to board this station. Every piece of equipment they examine will be feeding false information back to their fleet." As the technical problems aboard Zelkan ships continued to worsen, Vorthak decided to take direct action. His species had conquered 17 worlds without ever encountering serious resistance, and he refused to believe that humans could pose any real threat to his advanced fleet. "Deploy boarding teams to secure the human command facilities," he ordered his tactical staff. "These technical anomalies must be the result of human sabotage. Once we control their military centers, any resistance will collapse." The alien boarding parties launched from several ships simultaneously, targeting what their intelligence had identified as humanity's most critical installations. They had no way of knowing that every target had been carefully selected to draw them into prepared kill zones. Major Tim Jackson watched the alien shuttles approaching through his fighter's cockpit display. His squadron was hidden inside what appeared to be a damaged asteroid, waiting for the order to engage. Phoenix leader to all units. Maintain position until the aliens commit to their boarding operations. The nanoscale viruses chose that moment to begin their most devastating attack phase. Systems that had been experiencing minor glitches suddenly began failing completely. Communication networks crashed. Navigation systems provided false readings, and weapons targeting computers started selecting random targets. Commander, the Zelkan tactical officer reported with growing alarm, "We're experiencing coordinated system failures across the entire fleet. This cannot be coincidental." Vorthak studied the damage reports flowing in from dozens of ships. Power grid failures, computer network crashes, and communication breakdowns were affecting nearly every vessel in his fleet simultaneously. Analysis. What is causing these malfunctions? The science officer's response sent chills through the bridge crew. "Commander, the failures show clear signs of intelligent coordination. They're not random equipment problems. Someone or something is actively attacking our systems from within." The realization hit Vorthak like a physical blow. The humans hadn't surrendered at all. They had used the surrender ceremony to plant some kind of sabotage device throughout his fleet. The primitive species he had dismissed as harmless had somehow infiltrated and compromised his advanced technology. "Emergency protocols," he commanded. "Isolate all computer networks and activate manual backup systems. Signal all ships to prepare for immediate combat operations." But it was too late. The nanoscale viruses had spent 3 days learning every detail of Zelkan technology, and they were now perfectly positioned to cause maximum damage. As the aliens tried to switch to manual controls, they discovered that their backup systems had also been compromised. Admiral Morrison received the signal he had been waiting for. "All stations, this is Control. The enemy is beginning to realize their situation. Prepare to execute Operation Nemesis on my command." The hunters had become the hunted, and the Zelkan Empire was about to learn what happened when they underestimated humanity's capacity for strategic warfare. The moment High Commander Vorthak realized that humans had infiltrated his fleet's computer systems, Admiral Morrison gave the order that would change galactic history forever. "All units, this is Morrison," he announced over the quantum-encrypted communication network that connected every human military installation in the solar system. "Operation Nemesis is now active. Execute all phases simultaneously." Across the solar system, installations that had appeared to be simple mining operations suddenly revealed their true nature. Massive railgun batteries emerged from camouflaged positions on asteroids, their magnetic acceleration chambers charging with enough energy to punch holes through starship armor. Orbital habitats that had looked like civilian research stations dropped their false outer shells to expose missile pods containing thousands of quantum-phase torpedoes. Captain Lisa Rodriguez commanded the dreadnought New York from its hiding place behind Europa, one of Jupiter's largest moons. The ship had been built in secret over 5 years, incorporating every lesson learned from studying alien technology and tactics. "All batteries, target the alien command vessels," she ordered her weapons officer. "Fire for coordinated effect. In 3, 2, 1, execute." The New York's main guns fired simultaneously with hidden weapons platforms throughout the solar system. Streams of magnetically accelerated projectiles crossed millions of kilometers in seconds, striking Zelkan ships that were already struggling with system failures caused by the nanoscale viruses. The alien fleet, arranged in their traditional conquest formation, discovered that their predictable tactics had become a fatal weakness. Human weapon systems, guided by quantum-entangled targeting computers, focused their fire on the exact spots where Zelkan ships were most vulnerable. Major Tim Jackson led Phoenix Squadron out of their asteroid hiding place as soon as the main bombardment began. His experimental fighters used gravitational manipulation drives that made them incredibly maneuverable compared to traditional spacecraft. "Phoenix leader to all fighters," he called over the squadron frequency. "Remember your training. These aliens have never fought pilots who learned to fly by fighting each other for centuries." The Zelkan interceptors that rose to meet them were technologically superior in many ways, but they were piloted by beings who had never faced truly desperate opposition. Every species they had conquered had surrendered quickly, rather than fighting to the death. Jackson's fighters used tactics that seemed impossibly reckless to the alien pilots. Human fighters dove straight into enemy formations, using their superior maneuverability to attack from unexpected angles. They coordinated their attacks with a precision that the Zelkins had never encountered. The alien energy shields, designed to deflect the primitive kinetic weapons used by other conquered species, proved completely useless against humanity's quantum phase. Torpedoes. The human weapons existed in a state of quantum uncertainty until they struck their targets, allowing them to pass through energy barriers as if they weren't there. Commander Beth Williams, still aboard the Zelkan flagship, activated the final stage of her sabotage mission. The nanoscale viruses she had planted throughout the ship's system suddenly converted from intelligence gathering mode to full assault configuration. "Control, this is Williams," she whispered into her hidden communicator while alarms blared throughout the alien ship. "The flagship's life support and weapons systems are now under our control, beginning emergency extraction procedures. The viruses seized control of everything from artificial gravity to atmospheric processors." Zelkan crew members found themselves floating helplessly as their ship's gravity generators began cycling on and off randomly. Breathable atmosphere was being replaced with inert gases in some sections, while others were flooded with emergency lighting that strobed at frequencies designed to disorient alien vision. High Commander Vorthak watched in horror as his mighty conquest fleet was systematically torn apart by the species he had dismissed as primitive. The tactical display showed dozens of his ships disabled or destroyed, while others were being boarded by human assault teams that seemed to know exactly where to strike. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his science officer. "No species has ever resisted Zelkan military superiority with such effectiveness." The science officer, struggling to maintain his balance as the ship's artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, provided an answer that would haunt Zelkan military doctrine forever. "Commander, they didn't just prepare for invasion. They prepared specifically for us. Every weapon, every tactic, every strategy they're using has been designed to counter our proven methods." The humans had studied every world the Zelkins had conquered, analyzing battle reports and survivor testimonies to understand exactly how the alien military operated. They had identified every weakness in Zelkan tactics and technology, then designed specific countermeasures for each one. Colonel Ryan Mitchell's stealth fleet emerged from hiding throughout the solar system, attacking the alien formation from every direction simultaneously. The Zelkan ships, designed to fight enemies who challenged them directly, were completely unprepared for opponents who appeared from nowhere and struck without warning. "Ghost leader to all units," Mitchell announced. "Execute Hammer Pattern 7. Concentrate fire on their command and control vessels." The stealth ships used weapons that the aliens had never seen before, quantum disruptors that could tear apart the molecular bonds holding starship hulls together, gravitational pulse cannons that created artificial black holes for fractions of a second, crushing anything caught in their effect radius. Captain Danny Brooks piloted his destroyer through the chaos of the battle, his crew working with the precision of a machine. "Target their communications array," he ordered his weapons officer. "Let's see how well they coordinate without their command network." The invisible hand's quantum torpedoes struck the Zelkan communication ship just as it was trying to restore contact with the rest of the fleet. The explosion was visible from Earth as the alien vessel's reactor containment failed, taking 3 nearby ships with it in a chain reaction of destruction. Throughout the solar system, human weapons platforms that had been disguised as civilian infrastructure revealed their true purpose. The asteroid belt itself seemed to come alive with weapons fire as mining ships shed their camouflage and joined the battle with military-grade weapons. Dr. Helen Barnes monitored the engagement from her command center, tracking the effectiveness of humanity's coordinated assault. "Admiral, enemy fleet cohesion is down to 37% and falling. Their command structure is completely compromised." Morrison nodded grimly as he watched the tactical display. "Signal all units to offer surrender terms to any alien vessel that powers down its weapons. We're not here to commit genocide, just to protect our home." The trap wasn't just technological or tactical, it was psychological. Humanity had weaponized the very arrogance that had made the Zelkan Empire successful for 2,000 years. turning their predictable conquest pattern into a fatal vulnerability. The jaws of the trap had closed completely, and the most powerful military force in known space was discovering that there was at least one species in the galaxy that refused to kneel. 6 hours after Operation Nemesis began, the space around Earth looked like a graveyard of alien ambitions. Of the 200 Zelkan warships that had entered the solar system with such confidence, fewer than 30 remained capable of movement. Burning wreckage drifted through space, marking the spots where the galaxy's most feared conquest fleet had met humanity's carefully planned resistance. Admiral Morrison stood in the observation deck of Command Station Alpha, watching rescue ships collect the surviving Zelkan crew members from disabled vessels. Despite the overwhelming victory, he felt no celebration. This battle had been necessary for humanity's survival, but it was still a tragedy that so many beings had died because their leaders chose conquest over diplomacy. General Paul Henderson joined him at the viewing window, both men contemplating the magnitude of what humanity had accomplished. In a single day, they had defeated an empire that had been conquering worlds for over 2,000 years. "Sir," Captain Rodriguez reported from the communication station, "the surviving Zelkan vessels are requesting permission to withdraw." "Hi, Commander Vorthak is asking for terms." Morrison nodded to Communications Officer Lieutenant Amy Foster. "Patch me through to their flagship. It's time to end this properly." The holographic image of Vorthak appeared in the center of the command deck. The once proud alien commander looked completely defeated, his elaborate military decorations seeming hollow against the backdrop of his burning fleet. His forearms hung limply at his sides, and his gray skin had taken on a pale, sickly color. "Human leader," Vorthak began, his voice translator struggling with concepts his species had rarely needed to express. "The Zelkan Empire acknowledges its grave error in judgment. We request terms for the withdrawal of our surviving forces." Morrison's response was measured but firm. "High Commander, your empire made a fundamental mistake when it assumed that humanity would be an easy conquest. You failed to understand that every species you defeated taught us something valuable about warfare and survival." Dr. Helen Barnes, monitoring the exchange from her laboratory, had spent the last 6 hours analyzing the battle's outcome. Her preliminary report would reshape humanity's understanding of their place in the galaxy. "Commander Vorthak, your people will return to the Zelkan Empire with an important message. Humanity offers peace and cooperation to those who approach us with respect and honest intentions. But to those who threaten our existence or the freedom of our people, we offer only the consequences of their choices." The surviving Zelkan officers on the flagship bridge listened to these words with expressions that human translators interpreted as shock and bewilderment. For 2 millennia, the Zelkan Empire had been the dominant military force in this region of space. The idea that they could be defeated so completely by what they considered a primitive species challenged everything they believed about their own superiority. Commander Beth Williams had been successfully extracted from the alien flagship during the final phase of the battle. Her intelligence team had gathered more information about Zelkan technology and tactics than humanity had ever possessed about any alien civilization. "Admiral," Williams reported during her debriefing, "the aliens operate under a rigid military doctrine that assumes technological superiority, guarantees victory. They've never encountered an enemy that could adapt and innovate faster than they could respond." Colonel Sarah Kim submitted her analysis of the alien boarding operations that had targeted Space Station Liberty. The Zelkan ground forces follow standardized assault patterns that worked perfectly against the 17 worlds they conquered. But those same patterns made them predictable and vulnerable to prepared defenses. The space station had successfully captured 12 alien soldiers alive, along with examples of their weapons and equipment. The intelligence value of these captures would help humanity prepare for any future encounters with hostile alien species. President Maria Santos addressed not only Earth, but every human settlement throughout the solar system that evening. Her words were broadcast on every communication channel, from the orbital habitats around Mars to the mining colonies in the asteroid belt. "Today, humanity proved that we are not victims waiting for stronger species to determine our fate," she declared. "We are survivors, innovators, and protectors of our own destiny. We did not seek this conflict, but when it came to our doorstep, we met it with courage, intelligence, and unity. The president's speech was also transmitted to the surviving Zelkan ships as they prepared to leave the solar system. Her words carried a clear message that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. Humanity was no longer an unknown quantity that could be easily dismissed or conquered. Major Tim Jackson led his fighter squadron in escort duty as the alien survivors limped away from Earth. His pilots maintained respectful distances while ensuring that the defeated fleet actually departed human space. Phoenix leader to all units: maintain formation but do not engage unless fired upon. These beings have learned their lesson. The psychological impact of the battle would prove to be even more significant than the military victory. The Zelkan Empire had built its power on the belief that their technology and tactics were superior to any other species in the galaxy. That belief had been shattered completely. High Commander Vorthak would return to the Zelkan homeworld carrying the most devastating news in his species' history. Not only had they been defeated, but they had been defeated by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Worse, the defeat had been so complete and so carefully planned that it was obvious the humans had been preparing specifically for Zelkan tactics. Dr. Barnes compiled her final report on the engagement for the Earth Defense Council. The Battle of Sol demonstrated that adaptive tactics and psychological warfare remain humanity's greatest advantages in conflicts with technologically advanced opponents. The aliens' rigid military doctrine made them predictable, and their arrogance made them vulnerable. The report would become required reading at military academies throughout human space. Future generations of officers would study how humanity had turned apparent weakness into overwhelming strength through careful preparation and strategic thinking. In the months that followed, news of the battle spread throughout the galaxy via alien communication networks. Other spacefaring civilizations learned that there was at least one species that could not be conquered through simple technological superiority or military intimidation. The Zelkan Empire would never again underestimate a potential opponent based on initial appearances. The warnings they had ignored weren't just humanity's diplomatic overtures. They were the sound of a trap closing around an empire that had forgotten the most basic rule of warfare. Never underestimate your enemy, especially when that enemy has had time to study your weaknesses and prepare accordingly. Years later, the Battle of Sol would be remembered throughout the galaxy not just as humanity's victory, but as the moment when the universe learned that the most dangerous predator is often the one that appears to be prey. The Empire had ignored the warnings and walked straight into Earth's trap, changing the balance of power in space forever.